Now, I was waiting to see how this game within a game twist shook out before I made this video, since we all know much too well at this point how one twist can basically derail an entire season of Drag Race. But after seeing that episode, All Star 6 is peak Drag Race. We been new. Spoilers ahead, up to episode 10, you have been warned. There was a lot working against All Star 6 from the jump. Firstly, it comes after one of the most ill-received seasons of the entire franchise, All Stars 5. A lot of people truly lost hope in the spin-off series after All Stars 5 was such a disappointment. On top of that, it was moving from cable television to a streaming service, a new streaming service, Paramount Plus. I think it was definitely used as a marketing ploy to bring in new users to the platform, but this pissed off a lot of fans who thought it was wrong to have to pay to watch a series they'd previously just been able to watch on VH1. And to add even more, fans were not happy when they saw the cast reveal. On first glance, fans were very disappointed, I would say, with the choices made, from Ginger getting her third shot to the inclusion of queens the fandom just were not fans of, like Silky, Raja, and Eureka. The early dialogue surrounding the season was overwhelmingly negative, and it seemed as though Drag Race might have yet another flopped All-Star season on their hands. But this season turned out to have the true underdog storyline, and has continuously surprised fans by the caliber of the challenges, runways, and of the queens themselves. This season has been literally incredible. I would say it's hands down the best season of All-Stars since All-Stars 2. So now, what about this season has set it apart from the previous couple of All-Stars? I truly think we are witnessing an all-time great season before our eyes, and it is literally so exciting. With letdowns like Drag Race Down Under coming out this year, a lot of fans were worried maybe this franchise had jumped the shark. But All-Star 6 is proving that there is still so much life left in this series. So let's break down this season and what is making it an all-time great. But first, if you are not already, make sure you are following me on Instagram and Twitter, where I post my thoughts on new episodes, polls, and more updates on videos and all kinds of other stuff as well. Also, check out the Patreon if you want. We have an event coming up soon on our Discord server and all kinds of other fun stuff going on, so check that out if you are able. Okay, let's get back into it. Here I have 5 factors that I think make or break a season of All-Stars. The cast, the major twist, how intense the Riggery is, the challenges, and the storylines. So let's break down each one of these categories for All-Star 6 and see how well it has done in each category. Now, I think the most obvious factor in what has made All-Star 6 such a success is its incredible cast. Now, I'll admit I had some doubts going in as well. I wasn't the biggest fan of all of these queens, and it's not like they were all known as huge powerhouses on their seasons. There were a lot of early outs and some choices that just seemed kind of out of left field. Only 4 queens out of these 13 had made a finale on their seasons. The most followed queen on this cast had barely over 500,000 followers on Instagram. This wasn't a hugely popular group of queens with like tons of superstars on it, like we usually see on All-Star seasons. But I think that's what led to the season being so good. There weren't the obvious frontrunners we all knew were going to slay from the start. I mean, I guess Ginger Minj or like a Eureka, I would say, were like the closest to being frontrunners going in. But even Ginger had a pretty bad showing on All-Stars 2. So it felt like this season everyone was on kind of the same playing field. Compare that to like All-Stars 5. We all knew the top 3 were going to be the top 3 way before the season even started airing. It was so obvious. Now, looking at the current top 4 of All-Star 6, I don't think I ever would have guessed these would be the 4 queens to make it to the end. Also, I would say after the first two eliminations of this season, it was a pretty close race. There weren't the queens who were obviously doing bad every week that would get picked off early. Every week was like a shocking elimination, and it hurt watching all of these queens go home. The attachment that we had to these queens is an attachment I don't think I felt in a long time. Even queens like Raja, Eureka, and Silky, who didn't necessarily get the best edits in their seasons or come across super likable, I absolutely fell in love with on the season, and I think a lot of the fan base has as well. This really is the season of the redemption arc, and I absolutely loved seeing the fandom fall in love and support queens that they kind of wrote off from their previous seasons. Now, some seasons, like All Stars 5 especially, the cast just doesn't gel together super well, so we don't feel super attached to the relationships and the bonds that are made. But All Star 6, I think, did a great job of showing how this group of queens came together and juggled both their old relationships as well as the new ones they formed here. For example, we learn about Ginger and Jiggly's friendship right off the bat, which leads into the storyline where Ginger votes her off in episode 2. And that was such an intense episode because we already knew how close they were and how tough that vote was on Ginger. But we also get to see Ginger and Jan spark a friendship and understand later when Ginger sends Scarlett home over Jan why she makes that decision. We also get to see like Trinity and Eureka's flirtmans, the season 11 girls' friendships, and many other relationships that in turn make us feel closer to the group as a whole. Some All-Star seasons tend to forget about how important it is to see the group dynamic because it helps the viewers piece together the arc of the season. And I love that All-Star 6 takes its time in filling us in on all of the relationships. I think this was deeply helped by a fantastic season of Untucked to go along with the main series. Now, All Stars 5 had Untucked 2, but it kind of felt like a waste. Like, I couldn't tell you one moment from that season of Untucked. But All Star 6 had some seriously incredible Untucked episodes that gave us more time with the queens and in turn made us fall in love with them even more. So yeah, this cast was a home run, and I am so excited to see all of their careers flourish moving forward because of the runaway success of All Star 6. Alright, let's discuss the twist. The lip sync assassin and the secret redemption lip sync smackdown. Okay, wow. Both of these, in my opinion, were top tier twists. Some of the best that we've seen. They were handled delicately by production, and in the end, they don't feel cheap or gimmicky or just there to start drama. They feel like legitimate obstacles the queens have to face on their way to the crown. The lip sync assassin twist on All Stars 5 was a total flop, we been knew, and I get into why that is in this video here. The assassins didn't seem to try that hard on All Stars 5. Some were just given songs completely out of their wheelhouse, and it overall was just very underwhelming. Especially when you have two queens just throwing in the towel and voting themselves out of the competition. But in All Stars 6, the assassins were all iconic and fought just as hard as the queens in the competition to win. Yeah, some of them felt a bit set up for storylines, but the lip syncs were almost all iconic, except for Boom Clap, we don't talk about her. And then the voting portion of the twist was also so much more dramatic. These queens were fighting to stay. Even like week 2, we had Jiggly doing everything she could to stay in the competition. It wasn't like an All Stars 5 where queens were kind of throwing in the towel left and right. And it's the queens' competitiveness and tenacity that made the voting on All Stars 6 so much more interesting and dynamic each week. As for the secret lip sync smackdown, oh my gosh, this was truly one of the best episodes of Drag Race I have ever seen. I always like when we get to see the eliminated queens again towards the end of the season. They get to come back and show off their talents again, and it's just nice to remember how great the full cast is. Now, one gripe that I have with Lip Sync for Your Legacy is that we don't get to see some great lip syncers lip sync again on their All-Star seasons. It's a shame that we never saw queens like Chi Chi, Alexis Mateo, or Coco Montrese lip sync on their All Star seasons because they didn't win a challenge. What I love about this twist, and then the Lollapalooza on All Stars 4 kind of did the same thing, is that we get to see every queen come back and lip sync again. It gives them their moment to shine one last time and again show off their talents. Now, the twist on All Star 6 really felt like a swan song for a lot of these queens. It was amazing storytelling, an amazing redemption for Silky. It was just so much fun. And they even got the top 4 to like commentate on the whole thing. It made it even better, and it highlighted how fun and stellar they were as a top 4. Everything about this episode was just a great time, and in my opinion was well worth the wait. If they like made us wait super long for a dud of a twist, it could have put a huge damper on the season, but in my opinion it lived up to the hype and I think is going to be talked about for a long time. All right, moving on to the Riggery. Now, every season has Riggery, but some seasons it's more apparent than others, and some seasons it's more maddening than others. All Stars 3's Riggery was so frustrating to watch, but for All Star 6, while there were some decisions made that made me like cock my head a little bit, I was never full on like pissed. I do think that like Scarlett was majorly overlooked, probably deserved a better track record. I don't necessarily agree with one of Ginger's wins, but I can see why those decisions were made. And in the end, I agreed with most of the decisions made on the season. So overall, I'm not going to leave the season still mad about the rigging. I'm going to be more focused on how queens like Trinity and Raja and Kylie all got their well-deserved flowers for how much they slayed the season. Like I had mentioned before, the choice for which assassins were there each week was, I think, the most glaring evidence that there might be some riggery going on. Coco sending home Serena, Brooke versus Raja, Laganja versus Trinity, Cameron sending home Eureka. They all made me raise a brow, but in the end, it really doesn't matter in the long run, and it did make for some fun parallel moments to other seasons. Now, the challenges. This season had some great challenges. Side hustles, the halftime show, Show Up Queen, they were some all-time greats. That halftime show, I'm still not over it. This category also has to do with the performances of the queens, and wow, did they knock these challenges out of the park every week. There was very few, I would say, complete like flop performances on the season. Trinity flopped the talent show, Jan flopped the pink table talk, Akira flopped the acting challenge, Pandora didn't do too well her last 2 episodes, but those are the only real moments that come to mind. And after 9 episodes, that's really not bad at all. Even that crappy acting challenge still had great performances from Kylie and Jan and Ginger that made it a lot better to sit through. The talent of these queens is undeniable, and there are multiple episodes where I feel like no one really did bad enough to go home, and that's a real rarity. I would say season 12 is the other season I feel like has this distinguishable trait. And also just the fact that we had so many queens winning challenges. On All Stars 5, it was literally the top 3 and India Farah that won challenges. This season, we got a huge portion of the cast winning challenges. The first 6 episodes were all won by a different queen, which just kind of makes the competition more interesting because it's like, okay, well, who is actually going to make it to the end then? It's not so obvious. Okay, let's move on to the last category, which is the storylines. Now, Drag Race is known for some of the best reality show storylines of all time. Sharon versus Fifi, Rolaska Talks versus Jinx, Heathers versus Boogers, and with All Stars, most of the queens come in with some already set up story arcs. Yet some seasons just don't really seem to utilize these as well as I think that they should. All Star 6, I think, has some great story arcs, though. Eureka fighting for a win, Jan not really understanding her critiques or what the judges want from her, Yara annoying the group with her antics, Trinity getting out of her feelings and just like slaying the challenges. There aren't any Rolaska Talks level story arcs at play here, but I think the stories that they had for all of these queens were carefully crafted and well done regardless. For a season without much drama, they still somehow kept tension throughout the season and highlighted the issues the queens were facing while they were there. To me, this season is one of the most real feeling. Nothing felt super produced. And besides Jan somewhat, I don't think any of the queens were edited to look terrible just for the drama. Everything shown seemed to play out pretty naturally, which I also think helps with the relatability of the cast and why we became so attached to them so quickly. Think back to when Trinity quickly snapped at Scarlet back in episode 2. They sort of play this up for drama, but then they show Trinity quickly apologize and Scarlet forgive her. It feels like a very natural response to a high-intensity situation that we see play out in its entirety without too much of the shady editing that we see other queens get on other seasons. If they really wanted to, Trinity could be the full-on villain of the season. I mean, her fellow competitors voted her as the moodiest, and we see her have a couple snappy moments throughout the season, but instead the show focuses on how important this competition is to Trinity and how it sometimes affects her negatively. This is a more truthful and realistic portrayal of Trinity as a person, and I think was a much better option than playing shady rattlesnake noises every time she opens her mouth. And instead, we get Trinity becoming a huge fan favorite because of that relatability. I hope the show goes for this type of editing more moving forward, but I low-key feel like that's not gonna happen. This show is much too known for its drama and fights for them to not amp up the tea whenever they have some to amp up. But this different approach this season, I think added so much to the overall product. So, All-Star 6 truly checked all of my boxes. And as you can see, the only other season of All-Stars to do this was All-Stars 2, a season known pretty universally as the greatest season of Drag Race ever. So how does All-Star 6 compare? This might be a hot take, but I think there's honestly the potential for All-Star 6 to pass All-Stars 2 as my favorite season. And that is just my opinion, but I think this season is longer, which helps to make me feel more attached to the queens themselves. And it lacks the nastiness that All Stars 2 had, which, yes, was fun to watch and made for some gaggy moments. But now seeing how it negatively affected the queens from that season with the fandom, it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth watching it back. Of course, I think we're all guilty of this, but depending on who wins also can say a lot about where a season ranks for me. Having a queen that you love win in the end can really be like the cherry on top of a season. So I think whoever takes the crown in the end can also affect if I think the season surpasses All-Stars 2 in my rankings. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? We're almost to the end. There's 2 episodes left. I love seeing Drag Race get such rave reviews again, as some of the seasons lately have not been as warmly regarded by fans. I just love seeing LGBT people succeed, and the season is filled with LGBT success stories, so my heart is all warm and fuzzy. Let me know in the comments below, who are you rooting for to take this crown, and your overall thoughts on the season so far. Here are my social media handles, and of course, my lovely patrons. Thank you so much for your support. It has been a long day solving the mystery of who I want to win the most out of Kylie, Trinity, and Raja. And this mystery may never be solved. Triple crowning? I'm down, honestly. Thank you so much for watching, and I just want you to all know, I'm your biggest fan!